Okay, this is as you know, I've played with a few of the other Affinity products, including Affinity Photo and Affinity Designer, which are basically a Photoshop application, a Photoshop type application, or Designer, which is like an Illustrator type application. Well, Affinity Publisher, their latest entry, it's not officially released yet, still in beta. It's available free for anybody who wants to try it. And these people are extremely aggressive. About every 3 weeks or so, there'll be a new version, and they've got their beta software designed to time out and automatically give you the option, because they want you to have the latest, greatest version of the beta software. So far, I haven't run across any bugs that aren't working, except for these persona options up here, which I'll talk about in a moment. But this is essentially a page maker or an Adobe InDesign or a Quark Express or even the old Ready, Set, Go page layout program, similar to like Microsoft's Publisher would be, other than the fact that this one really works pretty well. If you're familiar with any of those, you're semi-familiar with the way this works. You've got the normal stuff. I mean, can you all see this screen that I'm looking at right here?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you open up a brand new document, you're presented with a series of options here, including what is this document going to be used for. You can change this after the fact if you want to. Most common for most of us would probably be for print version, which would be like for a normal 300 to 600 DPI printer. But you can also pick a press version, so it'll be up in the 2400 DPI. It's going to be saved as a lot higher quality. Again, you can come back and do this later. You can save it as solely as a photo, basically be like a high-res TIFF type file. You can save it in a web format, or you can specify it for a particular device. You can also come in here and set your own presets up if you want to. Most common would be print. Then you can come in here and you can choose their page sizes. Now, being that it's a European-based company, they've got all the A series pages along with the sizes that we use over here. So we've got our 8.5 by 11, our 8.5 by 14, our 11 by 17, our 17 by 22, 22 by, these would be like drafting sizes, 22 by 34, and 34 by 44, all the way up to an E size like drawing. But you can still make a custom size if you want to.
Hey, wait,
So yes, go ahead.
Go back to that first menu, the previous menu. Yeah. What is devices? They mean like mobile devices or what?
Apparently so. I haven't bothered to look that up, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So if you want to make something customized to fit a specific device.
Oh, okay.
Which I imagine you could use the custom setting for that as well, either one. I mean, you can come up there and pick that. So,
okay. Would you go into custom, go into that, yeah, devices, go to devices. Yeah, just wanted to see what it is.
There we go.
iPad and iPhone and all that, as well as our...
This is the convenience. Look at that, even a Surface Pro down there.
Galaxy and so on. But,
so that's pretty nice that they've offered that option, because you don't see that on the Adobe product.
Even Apple Watch, look at that. 3 sizes. Huh.
That's pretty nice. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, maybe you've got the old 38 millimeter, the older 42 millimeter large men's watch, and the newest men's watch is 44 millimeter.
Yeah.
So. Okay, then you've got the different page sizes. In most cases, like in my case, for the most part, would be letter size. But if I was doing a brochure, or if I was doing a booklet, I might want to do it 11 by 17, a full spread, so that I can print, cut that in half or whatever it is to have a stapled booklet or a stitched booklet. And you can specify what you want your dimensions to be in points or pi, because I still come from the old mentality. I think in terms of points, but for dimensions, I think in terms of inches. And so I find it easier for me to work in terms of inches, but I'm familiar with type point setting. So that's just me. But you've got
like 8 by 10 for photos, or 8.5 by 11 for paper, standard office paper, A-size paper.
And then you have a choice for images. When you go to place an image in the document, do you want to place the image in the document? I mean, if I've got an 8.5 by 11 and I'm making a 1-page instruction sheet, and I've captured an image, and that image is 5 gig in size or something like that, like one of Bart's photos or something. Do I want to place that entire 5 gig image inside an 8.5 by 11 document that I'm going to ultimately end up a PDF to give to somebody? There's no reason for it. So I can choose to make it a linked file. Now, there's advantages and disadvantages to both. The advantage of the embedded is, if I send that file to somebody else, if I end up with a document called brochure and I send it to Bruce and everything's embedded, he's got everything in there necessary to work with it. If I do it, now, if I'm smart, I've sized it down so that I'm not eating up space that he's not going to use. He doesn't need a full 5 gig picture for something that's going to be 2 by 3 inches. 500 meg might be sufficient, or even 125 meg might be sufficient. And I can affect that later as well. But a more intelligent way to do it is to use a link. I tend to start off with embedded for my convenience, but the advantage of link, let's say I'm doing an entire catalog, and I've done this in the past in PageMaker and in Quark Express, both, and also in InDesign, where I've done a 60 or 70 page catalog, and every image I put in there, I'll use a link. The advantage of a LinkedIn is when you're looking at it on screen, there's a representation, or I should say a screen resolution version that you're looking at on screen. And there's a physical software link, like an alias, pointing back to wherever that original object is in your system. It could be in multiple different folders, but you point it to, when you first place it in there, it's referenced to that particular folder. You can change that at a later time. That has the advantage that, for whatever reason, let's say that artwork gets updated, and I go in and I change that artwork. The next time I open up my page layout program like this one, that artwork will be updated inside this page layout program. If I embed the image, I've embedded it at the time that it existed. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes.
So you've got a live link, a live linked image to wherever it's out there. If it's something that you're working on, unless somebody's given you all the artwork and it's never going to change, I think the linked photo makes a lot more sense, because it keeps the physical document itself smaller. And in almost every page layout program that I've run across, when you go to save the document and I'm going to hand it off to a print shop, there's an option to export to export all the necessary fonts, artwork, everything, to put onto a CD or a zip disk or a jazz disk or whatever the hell solid state drive I'm driving. There's an option to put everything necessary to reconstruct that document onto a device and hand it to somebody else that can recreate it. So
Greg,
yes, go ahead.
I have a question. Okay, so let's say you're going to send it to somebody, say to me, and you do it as a link instead of embedding it, okay?
Right.
And you email it. So you email the file, and then you also email the artwork, right? Along with it. That's what you would have to do. You would have to send the artwork or some reduced size version of it. But then does the link still work, is my question. Is it updated okay?
If I export it, if in the save option I export or grab everything that's necessary, but use the software to do it, that exported data information, it actually builds folders with images, folders with fonts, folders with sounds. It builds all the individual folders.
So it builds relative to that top level folder.
Correct. So when you get it, if you just load everything into one spot, you might have to point to the very first one. In fact, usually there's an option to locate, and you'll click on locate to where that first image file is at. Boom, the rest of them are done.
Okay, so you've answered my question. You actually could email it to someone with links, but you have to be careful to do it that way.
Otherwise you would embed all the artwork. If that's the case. If they want to make a change to it or whatever.
You can't just send, in other words, you can't just send the file with the brochure or whatever and the other file with the artwork as two separate attachments and expect it to work.
You can, Bruce. You can do that, and then
the link wouldn't be right, though, would it?
The link wouldn't be valid, but you can relink it after the fact.
Oh, okay.
Well, the thing is, it seems to me that if you're going to try and send something with just the links, then that's going to give them access to your computer.
No, it doesn't work that way.
Okay.
The links are not the links are relative links. So if I've got if you're like me, I tend to, if I'm going to be working on when I work for Kwikset, I'm going to be working on, let's say, their 2019 price book, and so it's going to have all the artwork in it, all the art, all the logos, all that kind of stuff. Then I would make up a folder that's going to be called something brilliant like 2019 Kwikset Light price book, and I would save all the stuff necessary to be inside that. But I wouldn't that would be stuff that's unique for this document. But I'm using the same piece of art in multiple catalogs, and I have access to them through the network of where those files at. I don't want to load a full copy of that onto my system until I'm ready to give that to somebody else. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so.
So it's an option that you can do up front or before. I kind of look at it from the standpoint of what is this document going to be used as? In fact, I'll give you an example. Let me bail out of this real quick and let me open up something that, come to find out that this program opens up PDFs. It will open up InDesign files if you save them as a PDF. Let's just go ahead and open up. This is the ones that I originally made up for. That look familiar? These are the ones that I originally made up for how to use the Zoom on an iPad, or let me. There we go. So as you can see right now, they're individual images, because when I saved these off as a PDF, I wanted them to, I didn't rasterize it. I let the text in the PDF stay as text. I let the images stay as images, and then the little extra pieces, as you can see here, it didn't know how to build these. And so when it doesn't know, it breaks it up into individual components. So like, as an example, that's inside of InDesign, they would have had the option to draw a line with an arrow. This does too, but it doesn't know how to handle it when it was turned into a PDF. So I can at least work on this document and put updated images, but I have to be doing it all by manual. But at least it allows me to open up a PDF that has the individual components already in there to be able to continue to work with it. So that's kind of a nice feature. I don't necessarily have to keep an old version of InDesign, which is what I originally built this in just before I got rid of the application, to be able to hold it. And these images are embedded or self-contained. And what I did is I saved them off in the resolution that I needed them, because I wanted to make sure that if I was going to work on, I knew I was going to always leave them this size. So when I saved this off as a PDF, I saved it with all the images rasterized at 300 DPI inside the PDF, so that it would be easier for me to come back and manipulate, because I didn't think I was going to make anything else out of this document at the time.
Greg, those images are old, Greg.
I know they are.
New Greg is clean shaven.
New Greg is 106 pounds lighter too, so.
Good for new Greg.
Greg?
Yes.
I got a question for you. Is it possible to do your whole document with the, what do you call it, where you import the photo? Not where it's embedded, the other.
Linked.
Yes.
Linked. Can you link everything while you're working on it, and then once everything's in its final form, basically tell it to embed all those links? Or do you have to, if you want it to end up with an embedded pictures in your document, would you have to just embed them from the beginning?
No, you can do it after the fact. So as an example, these were screen captures. So they would have been, I don't know, maybe let's say half a gig a piece, but at this size here, they only need to be probably a couple 100K a piece. So as an example, inside of InDesign, these were linked images. And then when I went to save it as a PDF, I had them, well, let's see what the options are here. When I go to say, or export, We're here. Let's see what we got for save as. Okay, for save as, it's staying in its own native format, which makes sense. So when I go to export this, here's my options up here across the top. I can save the entire document as a PNG, as a JPEG, as a GIF, as a TIFF, as a Photoshop native file, as a PDF, as a SVG file, an EPS file. I've got all these high resolution file. So if I click on PDF for export, but there's my other options: PDF for print, PDF for web, PDF flatten, and then these higher end PDFs. So as an example, if this is going to be a PDF that I want to embed on a website, I'd save it as a PDF for web, and that way people can print it directly from the website. It'll be 300 DPI. Basically, it'll be the same as PDF for print. At PDF for export, it probably gives me the option here, and come down here and pick whatever resolution I want to. Well, I come on down here for this. Well, it still gives me that same option. Okay, but it defaults to 300, which is usually what it is. So if I do that, even though these are linked images and they could be 1 or 2 gig a piece, when I save it as a PDF, it'll scale down those images, be embedded inside the portable document format. The text will, by default, the text will remain text, but the images will be scaled down to 300 DPI at those physical dimensions, so that it keeps the PDF at its quality of 300 dots per inch, the maximum amount of data possible at 300 dots per inch, if that makes sense what I'm saying there. You with me?
I think so.
Yes.
So that has the advantage that, let's say this is a link. I'm not going to see a link now because I don't have the InDesign application anymore. This is a PDF I'm looking at. But let's say this image changed and I was working in, and it was a link that I'm working in this application, or again, InDesign or PageMaker doesn't exist anymore, or Quark Express. If I'm working in one of those and it's a link that I decide, instead of this image, I want to use a different image, I could literally relink this. I could either replace this image or I could relink this image to a totally different image. And then when I export it for PDF, it'll be that new image, but sized down to 300 dots per inch for the maximum quality that a typical home printer would give me.
How do you do the relink?
I don't know. I've never done it in this program. In the case of, I know they have a utility to do it here. I saw it demonstrated earlier.
Look under.
I just thought you might know. I'm just curious because sometimes you get it. The program, if it's not really good, will screw it up.
In the case of InDesign, there's a dialog box that comes up, and you look at a list of images. I'm sure it works the same way here. You look at a list of images, and as you select each image, it'll be highlighted here as I'm going across here, and you'll see the link. It'll actually point to users, Greg Locke, documents, price book, wherever I've got it, it'll actually be there. And all I got to do is grab that and point it to another file. It's done. That's
so
it.
Is it in the select menu then?
It is in a separate file. It's probably not going to show it here because these aren't linked images.
Greg,
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Greg, look under the edit menu. Maybe there's something under there for relinking.
Right, but it won't show because these are not linked images.
Oh, so they wouldn't even be there right now.
No, not for a PDF. They're not. It's treated differently.
Okay.
No, let me clarify about that then. Are you saying that it's not even showing in the menu just because it's a different kind of document? That doesn't seem right to me.
No, they do that all the time. Why show you stuff that you can't manipulate?
Well, okay. It just seems like even if it wasn't a PDF and you added something to it, is that then going to change the parameters of what the menus show?
Sure. A lot of things do that.
Okay.
A lot of things are contextual based, so stuff only shows up when it can be worked on. Otherwise, it's grayed out, right?
I understand contextual, but a lot of times there are things that do not fit those parameters.
Well, as an example, look at this drop-down menu here. Redo is grayed out. Why? Because we haven't done anything yet. There's nothing to redo. cuts
That's
grayed out.
my
We haven't
point.
selected anything.
That's the point. It may be grayed out, but at least I would know what menu to go to. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Okay, by golly, it's showing that. There you are. They call it the resource manager.
Okay.
So you can see right here, each one of these files, and there's giving you a miniature of where that is, and it's telling you right here it's embedded. It's not linked.
Okay.
But I have the option to come down and make it linked if I wanted to.
Right, right. Okay. I got it
So if
now.
I wanted to pull these source files up, remember, this is a PDF that I started off with. Let's say I want to make it back into a real document, like a real boy. I could come down here and click on Make Link, and then go navigate to wherever those files reside at.
Wait a minute. Go back. I follow you there. Where does Make Link?
Right. So right here, you see I'm looking at this. Look, here's the object.
Okay.
So let's say, for example, this one right here.
Right.
I want to say Zoom for iPad. This image is called Zoom for iPad 2.tif.
Right.
Its status is okay. That means it's contained there. It's on
Okay,
page.
but the resource manager, that was in what? What menu? Oh, document. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Got it.
And so if I want to link this to a whole, let's make one up. Let me hide this real quick.
There's a button down at the bottom that says Make Linked. So it's embedded
So
now.
Let's take a screenshot right here. Okay, we got a new screenshot. You just show up down there at the bottom. On Mojave, that's the way it does it now. And there it is right there. So if I hit the space bar, I can bring it up. There's my new image. Now let's go back over to Publisher. And let's relink this one here.
Make Linked.
And okay, it won't do it that way. Let's see, replace. That won't work it that way either. Oh, because I'm their folder.
You gotta go to desktop. There. That looks like it should work. Okay, so it's embedded, but you could click Make Linked and make it a linked file instead.
That's probably what I needed to do. Yep.
So I've
never tried this before, so
embed it first.
Sorry.
And then embed it first, and then change it from embedded to linked by using that Make Linked button there or something.
Well, do you have to go to replace first then?
no, what it did, it looked like it added one in here.
Oh, if you say, oh, would you like to link your images? If you say no, it embeds it. If you say yes, it links it, or links all of them maybe. It said images plural, which makes me think it's going to go back and change all the others.
Looks like it's doing that, yeah.
That would be a mess.
Which you might not want. You may want some embedded and some linked.
Here, let's do it. Let me do a better one. Let's go into a brand new document and let's place an image in here.
Did you have to draw the shape or did it come in as a default size?
It comes in as a default, but you can specify that later. Okay, so let's say there's the one we've got right now. So let's go look at Document Resource Manager. And it shows that it's currently a linked file, right? Okay? Yeah. Because otherwise, if I embed it, that whole image would be in there, the whole resolution. Now let's go make a new one.
Make something completely different, not the same screenshot, so it's easily distinguishable. Like maybe just the shot of your desktop itself or something, or a portion of it, or a region of it. All right, so you swapped out one photo for another there, didn't you?
There we go.
So far, so good. Well, no, I
Now,
thought you were going to add a second photo into the same document.
Well, let's do
Now,
that.
this is a linked file, correct?
This is linked as far as it's concerned. I can change it to embedded.
It is right now, I think, Janine, but, right?
Okay.
Right now, it shows the link. I can click on it and make it embedded.
I'm not sure it clicked. Did that work? Try select it and see if it says it's linked or embedded. Or they're both linked right now.
Let's get an idea what the file size would be. Let's do a save as right now. Real original names.
One.
So this is Affinity's version of InDesign then, or something?
That's correct.
Okay.
And my guess is it'll probably sell for $50.
Do they even still have Quark Express?
Sure, still exists.
It still exists. They haven't heard anybody or heard anything about it in a long time, but that may be just because I'm retired and I don't work in tech writing or other areas that might use it anymore. But one and two.
Greg, how closely does this application,
go ahead.
how closely does it mimic or, be approximately like InDesign or Quark?
As far as I can tell, Janine, it's exactly the same.
Okay.
So
as InDesign?
As InDesign, yep. Now, I haven't used InDesign for about for about a year and a half.
So it's a work-alike, in other words, a work-alike to InDesign.
Sorry, what?
Hi, Janine.
Oh, Marcia says hi, Janine.
Oh, tell her hi. Yeah.
It's still showing 24 meg. It's probably not enough data in the file for it to make a difference. That makes sense what I'm saying? They're both showing the same size. Embedded there. It's probably not a big enough file to show a difference.
Well, yeah, if you look at the individual bytes as opposed to the rounded off number on the right, you can see that they're not the exact same number of bytes, but rounded
pretty
off.
Close, yeah.
Yeah, they both round off to 24.7 megs, but if you look at the details, they're not exact. So that's what you would expect, that they would be close but not the same. But
yeah.
Yeah, so everything's good.
But that's good enough for me.
Well, it's good enough for a lot of things. But, well, and now, Greg, here's a question I just thought of. What if you did have somebody who's using InDesign? Does this thing have an export in InDesign form?
And there's a reason for that. Adobe won't give that technology up.
I figured it's an Adobe thing.
However, remember, by default, when you save it as a PDF, you could say, a better way to do it would be to export it as like an EPS file and keep the full resolution of everything if that's what you needed. You could do that with a PDF. You could do it with a photo. If you save it as a PSD, you could do it that way. It does have. They've had to over the years give up the lockdown capability of encapsulated PostScript and Photoshop the PSD format. So consequently, what that means is those can be used by anybody for any purpose. Does that make sense?
I think so.
The InDesign format, the Quark Express format, their own native formats are proprietary.
Yeah, and they always have been like that, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. And Photoshop PSD was for a long time.
Especially,
Yep.
I know Quark, we had a heck of a time trying to convert some Quark files into another publishing system. One place I was working, where, it ended up, we didn't convert them. We got a hold of a Mac because they were all using, well, at that time, Sun workstations. Eventually they switched to Windows PCs, but instead of migrating or converting them over to the Sun publishing system, they just got a Mac for our department, and we did that particular project on the Mac because that's the way the files came to us, that for this particular book project that we were doing, and they found it more cost effective to do it that way.
Yeah.
And since I was the Mac guy, I was the one who who did that or worked on it. But anyway, which I was glad to do because I learned a little bit about things I didn't know about Quark and about page layout in general on that project. But anyway, so Greg, what about standard interchange files? Are there some standard export formats that you can export into from this program and then maybe import in another program like InDesign or Quark?
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say, Bruce.
Or is that what you were talking about with EPS and those?
Yeah,
things?
you could do it with a couple of different things.
Okay.
I mean, what I would be tempted to do is if I wanted to take something from this into InDesign, I'd either save it as a high-res Photoshop file. Well, again, let's assume that these are embedded images. We have to make that assumption, okay?
Yeah.
So I'd save that as a high-res Photoshop. So instead of maybe these individual images need to be at least 100 meg here, but they're all original, let's say 400 meg, and I've saved that entire high-res PDF data in here. You saw right away that the text is still, let me zoom up, that the text is still text. I mean, it's still totally selectable. I can change the font. I can do whatever.
Still editable and still searchable and everything else.
Right. So because it's not rasterized, it hasn't been rasterized. See, the only thing that's vector data for all practical purposes. The arrows are vector data. The photographs aren't vector data because they're not artwork. They're rastered files.
Right.
So what I would do is I would do one of two things. I'd probably try them both. But I would either save it as a high-res Photoshop. I'd let the resolution be the maximum for Photoshop. Not going to affect the text. It's only going to affect the images. Okay. So now I've got a high-res.
If the text is really text, then whatever font you're using, it'll scale up and down smoothly.
That's correct. But you have to make the assumption that font exists on the other device.
Right. That's right. And so if you export it, depending on how you export it, it might not work unless you first convert it to all graphics or something.
Well, in the case of when you export a PDF, at least from any of the higher end PDF capability things, you can rasterize the text. So if it's a font, if you want this to be truly 100% portable, you rasterize everything, and now it can go wherever it needs to go. And it's not dependent on, does the guy have the fonts? Does he buy them? Does he rent them? Does he whatever? It's a true portable document. The drawback is,
as long as you don't, the guy on the other end, maybe it's a print shop or just the average user, as long as they don't have to edit it or search or anything, it doesn't matter.
That's true.
Right?
No, but I've had experiences where I would send a document with the native font, and the receiver doesn't have that font, so it goes to the generic. But then you can change it back to they can change it to whatever font that they have.
That's true.
As long as it's acceptable for the appearance.
The rules have lightened up on that a bit. When you, at least from InDesign, I'm sure it works the same way here. From InDesign and from Quark Express, you can embed the fonts in the document. What that means is that document has the calligraphy font. You can't easily get that font out to use it. So you can't, let's say, I can't get a document from Janine that's got a calligraphy font in it. I can open that document, I can edit that document, I can do whatever I want. The necessary information to use that font in that document exists. However, that font does not exist on my system. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay.
It's
All
not.
right, yeah.
That means the font is not installed with your other fonts. It's just
That's correct.
within the document only.
Right.
For years, Adobe and PostScript 1, PostScript 1 and PostScript 3, that capability didn't exist. And Adobe was pressurized into coming up with a way of being able to do that. And inside a document now, you're legally allowed to embed the fonts for that document in the document without giving them the actual font files. In the old days, you had to remember to give them Helvetica the way or whatever font you were using. When you did it, and
that's right.
You automatically included the fonts with it, and the guy had to.
Right. Otherwise, you could get into problems, licensing or copyright issues with the fonts if you weren't careful how you did or what you did. But
and the other problem you had true type fonts, which are almost non-existent anymore. And the problem is you'd have a font called Helvetica that was PostScript and Helvetica that was true type, and the kerning and the spacing, all that would be slightly different because one company made one font, one company made another font. They were both called the same. So that was a real problem for a long time. And that pretty much doesn't exist anymore. So the embedded font concept went a long way to making this truly a device independent, because it was good. Whatever you could open that document up, you could at least use the fonts in that document for editing that document. I could add more pages. I could save it as another name, but they were still embedded in that document.
Does that still apply to this one?
Yeah.
To Affinity?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That sounds like what you're saying. It's more of an industry-wide thing, not specific to one company.
It is now, yeah. Like I said, Adobe was really pressurized into. Also, you find that their fonts are a lot more affordable than what they used to be. They used to be like $130, $140 for a font. Now you can get them for like $20, $30. It's nothing compared to what it used to be. Now, one of the things
that'll do, huh?
One of the things I really like about this is, and you have an option like this inside of InDesign. You can select the image. Let's say, as an example, I need to go back and I need to tweak this image. I want to make this a little darker or whatever it is. And you can do some pseudo controls while you're inside this program. But you could, in Photoshop, in InDesign, you could actually select the photo and open it up in InDesign. And it was the same as manually going to go look for it, right? Well, you can do the same thing here, but now they have a feature. These haven't been implemented yet, but they have a feature called Persona. And as you can see right there, it's telling you it's not enabled yet, but you're going to be able to do that.
Does that mean then Adobe we used to be able to take something that was in design and temporarily move it into Photoshop to change it, and then
same thing with this. Yeah.
You think we're going to be able to do the same thing here?
That's the whole idea behind
with Affinity.
What they call personas. And they tell you when you look at their online help, it comes up and says the buttons are there, the buttons are live, they just don't do anything yet.
Okay.
But that's the whole idea behind
it. It's the concept. It's the same concept, basically.
Right now, in other words, Greg, it's kind of a way of switching from one of the Affinity apps to another, but it's a little more than that. In that, they communicate under the hood, you might say.
Yes. So the real advantage that has, yes, it's a linked file. I could manually go open. I can do that right now. I could manually go open the native file up inside Affinity Photo, just as in InDesign, open it up in Photoshop or whatever program I was working with it, since it's linked, and make the changes. And when I save it there, come back over and do a refresh over here, or an update. Basically, it would be an update link. And now the new image will be reflected over in this document, because it still gives you the option to save it the way it is without updating the link, but it's always going to remember that there's a link that's not updated. And that resource manager will tell us if that status was that okay, or it'll tell you it needs to be updated or whatever it is. So that'll be their option. Presently inside of Affinity Photo and Affinity Designer, they both have each other's persona in there, so that you can open up a illustrated, a vector piece of artwork from within inside of Affinity Photo, but now it'll open it up in Designer, assuming you've got Designer. It'll open up in Designer, and when you make the changes and you go back into Affinity Photo, the changes are reflected automatically because it knew that's what you wanted to do up front. That's the advantage of having that button rather than have to go back and manually relink it.
Sort of
manually update the
you
link.
could say there's sort of a communication going on between the two
Yes.
apps.
Yes, like I said, there was always, with linked files, there was always a way of doing that with linked files. But now you have the convenience of, I don't have to remember to go open up Affinity Photo and then go navigate to where that image is at and then make any changes, save it, and then right now, this
saves a lot of extra steps.
It already has the link. It already knows where it's at. It takes you there.
I'll be back in just a minute.
Sure. So I think that's a really, really cool piece. So far, they've only got like 14 tutorials out so far. And by going to the help, it takes you right to their website with the tutorials ready to go. But this is just their tutorial. There's, I haven't done much in the way of looking, but like here is their tutorials. And I looked at all these again this morning just to refresh myself. Everything works exactly the same way that I can tell, except their command shortcuts are a little bit different. Like the command shortcut for placing an image inside of InDesign was Command D. It's Command Shift M for whatever reason. Command D doesn't seem to be used. But I'd probably go back and change that myself. You know, you could use the keyboard shortcuts or whatever, make up a new keyboard shortcut.
Do that in the operating system, redefine the shortcut.
But they have a couple of features that I thought were really kind of cool. Let me open up another document here. Yeah, we'll just take the defaults. That's good enough. Okay, so this I thought was kind of cool. You can Adobe has InDesign has this feature. I forget what they call it, but I think it's the same basic thing. So let's say, as an example, I want to place a bunch of images, and I already know what I want. So I can come over here to the Place Image page, or I can do the Command Shift M, which is weird. But I'm going to go in here to, yeah, what have I got inside of it? Oh, there's one of the books that these are ones that I had done for
QuickSet.
For QuickSet. This is one I did for a third-party company called PBS, and they gave me this. I shot these digital images. They gave me this. This was you'll love this, Bruce. This was a camera that only did 300 DPI. That's how long ago I did this. So they gave me this brass water temperature. This is a water temperature control valve. So you've got hot and cold coming out here and hot and cold coming in here. And this would be the master mixing valve that you would adjust on the outside. So when you would turn your water on, it would be at whatever pressure. And let's say you've set it for 85 degrees. This mechanically, through thermocouples, automatically adjusts it. So they gave me a cutaway view of this valve, and they gave me one of this valve, and they wanted me to somehow show how it's mixing the water temperature. So you'd have the inlet water, and I painted that in red, and the outlet water, but I couldn't get a high enough resolution with a 300 DPI. So I ended up getting some close-up lenses, you know, that I had for my 35 millimeter camera, and I duct taped them onto the digital camera they loaned me so that I could get close. And I shot overlapping pictures. So I shot a picture of, let's say, here, and then one of here, and then one of here, and one of here, and one of here. So ultimately, I had about a 1200 DPI image when I pieced it all together in Photoshop, because that was the only option I had.
So then you had to stitch them all together in Photoshop.
Yep.
So, you know, Adam and Jamie would be very proud of you. You know, Adam Savage, and Jamie Heineman, you know, the Mythbusters. They love to do things with duct tape. You know?
Well, I mean, the close-up lenses just let the camera get close, because the camera had no adjustment for focus. I had to fake it by putting a piece of card with big text on it or whatever, so the camera would focus on that. I'd put my finger on the shutter. It had to be on a tripod. Put my finger on the shutter release, partially pushed out. That would focus on that. I'd move the card out of the way and push it all the way to take the picture. What a hassle! And trying to figure out how to do this was really. And what gave me the idea is when I worked at QuickSet, and the CAD program that I eventually got the company into using, was a solids. You worked in wireframe, but it turned the images to solids way before solids was common. And so you could look at this image on the screen, and we wanted some black. We wanted I knew the price book was going. Well, I can show you. I knew the price book was going to be in black and white, and so let's go back over here and find that. Yeah, that's good enough. Oh, problem is I can't get to them if I do it that way. Okay, let's do it this way. So I figured out a way of taking these images and robbing them off the CAD system so that I wouldn't have to recreate them again.
Yeah.
And so like
Nice.
this was one. That's not a good example.
So why reinvent the wheel when you can just massage the wheel into
Well, that's what
else?
never made any sense to me. I mean, originally the guys designed them in wireframe, right? Not in an isometric view, but in a top view, a side view, and a front view, that kind of baloney, right?
Yeah.
And then
That's called orthographic projection.
Yes, and then I could open up I didn't have CAD on my Mac, but I could take over one of the licenses remotely from Irvine to the Anaheim office when it existed. And as long as nobody needed that, I knew in the afternoon there was nobody working on the CAD system, so I could bring it up in an X window environment kind of a thing, and run that. The program was running on the computer on one of those workstations, those Silicon Graphics workstations in Anaheim, but I was displaying it on my Macintosh in Irvine. And I would bring it up and I would rotate it around and I would expand the artwork out and piece it together so that you could see this, and I would save that off it had the ability to save it off as a PostScript file. And I found a third-party utility before Adobe offered this option. I found a third-party utility that would turn a true PostScript file into an encapsulated PostScript. The encapsulated meant it had an image visible to the viewer rather than just only to the printer. If you had a display PostScript device, it wasn't an issue, but the Macs didn't offer a display PostScript at the time. So I found a third-party utility for $40 that would convert PostScript into encapsulated PostScript so I could have a screen representation. So I could get it to where it looked like that, and then I could open that up inside of Illustrator and add the text up here for that exploded view. And these images that you see right here are fake. They're all the CAD software shaded with the colors turned off. And I would screen snapshot them, and now they'd be local on the desktop on the Macintosh. I could put them over here, open them up in Photoshop. Well, again, I had the problem where the resolution was limited to 96 DPI because that's what that Mac could do. So I caught on to the fact that the CAD software didn't know any better when it was 96 DPI on the Silicon Graphics machine. So what I would do is I would zoom up about 8 or 10 times, take a screen snapshot of, let's say, this Abby knob right here, take a screenshot here and a screenshot here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, and a screenshot here and a screenshot here and a screenshot here. Then open them all up inside of Photoshop and piece them all back together, turn them to black and white, and it gave what looked like a three-dimensional real image. You can see the reflection. Like, hey, it beat paying a guy to reinvent the wheel, that's for sure.
Is that where the highlights and the shadows and the reflections came from, or how did you do those?
No, that was you could specify where you wanted the light source, as crude as this system was.
Yeah.
Okay,
that was in the Silicon Graphics high-end.
Graphics. Nowadays they all do it.
Yeah.
And
okay.
One of the last meetings, these were all fake. None of these products existed at the time we put this catalog together. I mean, we had samples. The samples were made out of wood, or blue plastic. It was cheaper to cut cut either in the blue plastic or cut it in wood. The blue plastic didn't have any strength. The wood was a kind of a in between. So before we'd actually take a slab of brass and cut it in brass with the NC machine. And so I found out that I could get away with, it held up real well by doing that Mickey Mouse way I was doing it, This was so successful doing this that the very first time we went to test market these items, I took pictures of competitor product and I put them on stands. And then I took the screen images that we had, made them look like brass, but they didn't even have materials. I just picked yellow and orange until I got it to sort of look like brass. Took pictures, physically shot pictures off the screen of my Macintosh. Put those into a 35 millimeter slide. Then I went in and took the competitors' handles that were similar, let's say to the Athens over here, put that on a stand so I could stand it up. And I would use, because I had no way of getting a chrome effect, I would use dulling spray on the competitor's product to take the shine off and take pictures of it. And then I would take the 35 millimeter slide, cut it in half, put the competitor on one half of the slide and put my faked image on the left hand of the slide, put it in a glass mount, take a new picture so that I could have it as one piece. And then I would duplicate that roll. So we ended up making 15 or 20 sets. I did this over a period of 2 or 3 days, 15 or 20 sets of like 40 slides. That would be this handle against the Schlage version, against the Master Lock version, against the Westlock version. And we went to shopping malls and they did consumer comparisons. And the fake images won most of the time. People could say, where'd you get those images? They don't exist. We don't even have these products yet, because they didn't have the resources. And I said, I faked it all, man. What do I care? I just had to make the competitor stuff look the same crappy level as ours did, so it would be, because they were just going for the design. I didn't do that one on the right there. That's something else. But I faked all this artwork out.
Wow.
By stealing it off. So what the company would do is they would actually make a product, then they would send a sample to a designer, and the guy would take pictures of it and he would create these outline illustrations, and we were paying a guy to do this and to do the exploded views. We were paying a guy to do that. And I said, this is stupid. The software we have will do it. We just have to figure out how to get it there. Well, now of course, the first time I made a presentation at the user group meeting that how you could do this before they ever had a materials option and stuff, they called me back up to their suite after the meeting was over. They had a conference out here at like the Hilton or wherever it was, a 3-day conference. And by making a presentation, I got to go to it for free. So and otherwise it was like $500. And so I went upstairs and they said, well, how did you do this? How did you do this? I said, well, give me a machine. I'll show you how. I'm not a designer, but I know how to manipulate the software. And I went through and showed the guys, and I said, what you guys really need? You need to have like you need to sell a module that's like a materials palette, and then a module that's like a surface palette. And by golly, the following year they had those. Because code is code.
Yeah.
That's what I do, is figure out how to do it. Now this product line doesn't even exist anymore. They dumped it a few years later after I quit.
One of the first pages you showed in this calendar have round knobs.
These are fake.
There's some long-handled type knobs. Go back to the one you showed. One of the ones you showed at first that had regular round doorknobs on it. I don't know if it was at the beginning or where, but it might have been. Shoot.
Yeah, that's their bread and butter line.
Keep going. Keep going.
Page up.
Keep going.
Helps if you get the cursor back in the right spot.
Those are not the ones. It's round doorknobs, regular. Somewhere you had it up earlier.
Is that it?
No, go forward a little bit. Another one. Keep going. No, I don't see it. Anyway, one of no, that's not it either. One of the doorknobs is the spitting image of one we had in Anaheim on our house there. It wasn't the original, though. Or several of the knob sets on the interior doors we had replaced all at once, and had the name next to it. I didn't know what the name was, or I might have known at the time. I was just surprised to see, oh yeah, that's right. And we did have all quick set locks and doorknobs and stuff in that house. There it is, Roman. Oh, whoa. See that? See
yeah, this one here.
Yeah, see that little pattern around the edge there?
Yeah, that's
what our knobs were like, at least on most of the doors. By the time we moved out of that house, but just, I don't know, not related to the discussion, but interesting.
This is what we have when Kwikset had a deal that when you were with the company for 1 year, you could get a house full of locks.
Oh.
And we had only been in this house for, I don't know, 5 months, 6 months, something like that. But we had both been with the company. It was like every 5 years or every 10 years, you could get another house full of locks, something like that. So remember, Marsh and I both came from Kwikset, so we were able to talk them, and we both reported to vice president. So we were able to talk them from the Kwikset locks into the Titan, which was a 6-pin instead of 5-pin, and we were able to talk them into this one here, in the Stedham lever. So we have levers throughout the house. Yeah, we wanted a finish that didn't exist, and they made a special finish. They did a special finish for us.
Wow.
So luckily, I was smart enough to get extras. Between the two of us, we got 3 or 4 extras in case we damaged one or whatever.
I was going to say, what would you do if something happened to one of them? But getting spares was a good idea.
I got spares. I got a couple of keying kits. I got all kinds of stuff. I mean, I can take these apart. I can pick them. I pick the Kwikset ones. I've never been able to pick the other ones, but same thing like the door. Same thing like this is what we have on the front door. This one here, the Athens.
Greg?
Yeah.
There's a downside to those levers. If you've got cats like we do,
they can open them.
Our Tomcat, he can open them, but I had to get some special things that stick onto the door with a thingy that keep the thing from moving up and down. Well, basically, I set the thing up so that you have to push up on it, and you can't push down on it from the outside of the door. So
for a short time, Kwikset was considering bringing out remember, Master Lock was getting into the knobs and handles besides just the padlocks. So they wanted to get even with Master Lock. So they were considering bringing out a series of padlocks. There was a third party that keyed padlocks to our key and to our key race. And so they decided they wanted to do it too. So we had a lock guy who unfortunately since passed away. It was only a few years. Oh gosh, he was probably my age, but he was sitting out on the nude beach and died sitting at the nude beach down off of San Onofre. Super nice guy, but he was he had a lock collection you couldn't believe. I'm surprised his second floor, his whole bonus room in his house in Lake Forest was full of locks, and because he had a huge collection. His wife really put some effort into giving it away towards the end, but he was tasked with go out and buy all the padlocks, one of every padlock or whatever it is, different packaging or whatever. And for a short time, they were going to mark them under the Black & Decker name, who owned the company, or under the Kwikset name. They weren't sure, but they thought they'd stay with Black & Decker. They probably in that product line, they probably thought it would do better. And so at the time that he was leaving the company, there was nothing they could do with these. They were samples. They were all fake product, with just a Black & Decker name stamped on them or whatever it was. So we were over at his house one day and he said, "Would you like a few padlocks?" I said, "Yeah, that'd be nice." And he gave me something like 300 or 400 padlocks.
Oh.
And so I immediately went through and I picked out ones that I thought I would like to have. Then I went over to Mom and Dad's on a get together Sunday weekend or whatever it is. And my brother and brother-in-law and my sister and my dad, they all went through and picked out what they wanted. Then we went to the swap meet. We sold another couple hundred at the swap meet. Basically it'd be a $5 padlock we'd sell for $1, kind of a deal. And then we came back. I've still got maybe 15 or 20 that I kept for other stuff, around. But it was an amazing collection because there was nothing they could do. They couldn't sell them. You couldn't sell a padlock under the Black & Decker name. They didn't sell padlocks, but they had they'd had enough runs of these made that they could have the sleeves made to go on the outside of them and call them Black & Decker or Key to Like or whatever it is. So that was kind of cool at the time.
So go back to the program here and give us some examples here of how you would work with the document for different people.
Say that again.
Well, I'm just thinking that if you have a company, you know, like Black & Decker or something is like that. So you're going to go in and you're going to take this document here and you're going to send it to their print office, and you're going to send it, you want to have one.
So they're all working on it simultaneously, but they're at various stages, right? In the
yes.
Okay.
Yes. How do you do that in here?
Okay. Well, let's see. Come on, mouse. Okay, let me open up a brand new document. Let's put a few dummy things in there.
Okay. I know we don't have much time left. I just wanted to.
Oh, we're good, whatever, until everybody gets tired. So let's say we're going to play some images here. This is kind of a cool feature. They're not the only ones that do this, but well, let's see. Okay, so here's kind of a cool thing. Let's take this feature here. I can select all those, and if I want to put an image in here, but I've got a whole bunch of images that happen to be in the same spot, what a convenient feature that is right there.
Oh, okay. So you didn't have to drag them. You just basically just opened all of them, and they're available to you now.
And they're available. And if I put in a, is that the, where's it at? Here we are, the picture frame. Let's say I know I want them all to be exactly a certain size, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's make it that it's going to be that size right there, and
so basically you're just duplicating the size.
I'm just duplicating the picture box.
Okay.
Come on.
Can you use the arrow keys to move them?
Sure. Yeah, you can. Well, if it's selected, you can nudge them with the keys. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And you can turn on grids and all that kind of baloney. You can see it's picking up some bait. I mean, if I want a grid line there, I can do it just like so. Drag it out from the ruler. That's pretty generic.
Yeah.
And you've got master pages, and you've got all those other features to be able to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and select all. Whoops. Group around them. And
anyway, I got to go, everybody. You have a good rest of the day.
Take care, Frank.
Have a good Mother's Day if your mother's there.
Bye, Frank. Thanks again for the help.
Oh, you're very welcome. Look forward to the next meeting. Guys, have a good day.
Thanks.
Bye.
You too.
Okay, well, I didn't do that so good, but
Don't worry about it.
Let's go back over to the images.
Yeah, it's probably good enough for demonstration purposes.
Now, what happened to the images on the left side?
I'm trying to remember where they're at.
Oh, okay.
Well, they must be around somewhere.
They are, and I'm just trying to remember what I did. Well, let's just do it again. Big deal.
Either that or look on the file menu maybe or somewhere to see if you see anything. All right.
Okay. So this has got kind of a cool feature, and that I can just, I select that, and as I move it across, it shows a grayed out version of what it was going to look like. Now, remember, these aren't, I haven't set any scales up or anything like that, so they're just going to go in the way they want.
Yeah, that's fine.
Kind of nice. What is that? Shots
but by default, it picks them up in that order that they happen to be listed there.
All right. What are you doing? Are you saying command open? Are you moving them? Are you just dragging them? What are you doing?
While I'm in that tool, let's get back out again.
Which tool?
The place image tool.
Okay.
Because I could have done this either with them free or in the boxes. So
which is the place images? Okay.
A little one right there, or command Command Shift M. Like I said, that's a weird combination from
Yeah.
my days of thinking. But anyway, there they
Can
all
you
are
just,
there.
if you do a select all on those, can you just drag them over and they'll populate?
I haven't tried that.
Okay.
Apparently not.
Into the document, you mean?
Yeah.
From the left side over.
Well,
Yes.
I don't think it can figure out how to put them in here.
You mean the order or?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
my question. Could you just, drag them over and they will self-sort?
You can do that by,
Click, shift click or something. Click the first one and shift click the last one. Or...
I'll show you a way of doing that, though. I'll show you a way of doing what you're talking about.
Okay.
Looks like your motorhome.
It's automatically it is. It's automatically loading these in. See how they're disappearing off that selector on the side?
So you're just going through and shift clicking?
Yeah, no, not even that. I'm just clicking. That's it. That's all.
Okay.
Click and drag.
It preloads the next one into the box, so you can place it wherever you want to. But another way of doing that is,
that's nice.
Rid of all these. Another way of doing that is to go back into place image, and let's select those again. And let's say I don't have any. If I don't have any boxes,
all right, no boxes on this sheet, this page. So it just puts them in sort of on top, just loose.
Yeah, as long as
that's an interesting collage.
No frame, no graphic frames or anything, just
nothing.
loose.
And they go in at whatever size they happen to be, unless you just inadvertently size that one down because I moved it while it was selected.
And wherever on the page you drop them, whether it's over the margin lines or not.
So it's your choice whether. So like on that one of the so like on the one here on this one in InDesign, I did a text box. I decided, okay, I wanted them to proportionally be that size. Let's zoom up on that. Whoops. I wanted them to proportionally be that size. So in the case of this, I made image boxes up, and so they would all load in. Well, God love him. There he is. There's Steve. Load them in that way, and then I took one text box with the most amount of text I had. Actually, it was this one down here, and I put one chunk of text in here, and I just basically duplicated that to all the places, so that I have a starting point with text to get them to line up and work. And so exactly,
nice.
it works.
Okay.
Exactly
yeah, sure. That's the easy way. Yeah, good.
Yep.
Okay.
So it depends. I mean, if you were going to do one page, it's easy. If I was going to do a 20-page or a 30-page, you'd start doing things like you'd start setting up master pages. So you'd come over here and you'd make a new master page as an example.
Right.
And whatever, call it Brilliant 1. And because right now the document's only single page, but if I made and it defaults to like master A, B, C on Adobe, but you can name them to anything you want to. But you can have as many masters as you want. And so I could come in here with this master, and I could come in here and let's say I want to put a color background to it.
That's nice.
And now if I wanted that to have that, I could apply master to that. I think I just did that wrong. There we go. So with that, I could put a logo that's running across the top if I wanted to. I could make my left and right differently. If I put page numbers on, I can put the page number here on the master. It'll automatically show up on all the other pages. If I could put the initial image text boxes up here on the master, along with the placeholder boxes up here on the master, along with a text holder in there, and I would end up with all these empty holes. And as I started to place my text, it could all maintain the formatting and the image. Everything could be patterned on from one master from the master page to page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you're doing a 60 or 70 page book, you don't want to necessarily copy everything and paste it, which you can still do. You can still do that, but it makes much more simple to set styles up.
Yeah.
They did something that was, and InDesign may do this now, but they show something that's very clever. Is they had a 12-page brochure.
Now, wait a minute. You said InDesign. Do you mean InDesign, or do you mean?
No, I'm talking in Publisher here. They show in their tutorials. They show a 12-page brochure.
Okay.
And he wanted to build a table of contents. So what he did is on each page, when you'd open the page up, he had a header that would be stylish design, and then maybe another one would be engine specifications, and another one would be, there'd be a header for each spread as an example, right?
Right.
Well, there's a feature built in here where you can say table of contents, and if you've identified those, if you've used the styles to use and call something header 1, header 2, header 3, Adobe does it the same way. Header 1, header 2, header 3, body 1, body 2, body 3. And you've gone in and you've said, okay, I want all the headers to be consistent, so I want them to always be calligraphy font. And on header 2, I want that always to be Helvetica, 24-point, bold, 3D shadow, whatever. And you've decided that. So now when you put in a piece of text and you come in there and you pick, I want it to be header 2, it automatically picks up that characteristic. Well, of course, if you've added that to the master page, that shows up that way as well. Right. So the cool thing is when you use the table of contents feature to build a table of contents, if you've used the headers on your various pages throughout, by default, it goes in there and it reads the headers, grabs the page numbers, and builds the table of contents automatically for you.
Nice.
Totally editable, but the nice thing is you go back and change that page, it's reflected in the table of contents.
Listen, I'm sorry, but I gotta go.
Yep.
But I'm really, yes, I'll be there. Just a minute, dog.
You know what?
I have to go. So maybe you can go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right.
I apologize. I've got to go take care of the dogs. Okay. I'd like to hear more about this in the future, though.
All right, Janine.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Guys, before you go on, there's something funny I got to show you that Karen brought into me. She got back from the bank a little while ago, and she had closed out an account. And yesterday, we received this. Let's see if you can read.
Hang on, I'm going to stop the share so we can see your screen again.
Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, the check? The thing from Chase?
Check for 1 penny.
Look at the amount. Yeah, 1 penny.
Probably cost them $1 to print that check.
Not only that, but you have to consider she's depositing it in U.S. Bank, which means there's going to be bank costs and everything else to chase on the whole thing.
But the public would scream if they didn't get that penny.
But at least their books will balance. Books will balance to the penny.
Hey, the funny thing would be for her to physically go in there, talk to a cashier, and say, "I'd like to have it in cash." To waste those people's time at the counter.
They just have to balance the books.
In terms of balancing the books, they still won't because of the embezzlement.
You imagine how much rounding must exist in the world that's got to amount to billions, probably.
Well, she could go into the bank with another guy next to her, and she could
get a cashier's check for a penny.
No, and she could walk up to the window and ask them to cash the check, and the teller would say, "Sure, we can do that. It's for 1 penny." And the teller would say, "Who's that guy with you?" And she'd say, "Oh, that's my bodyguard."
Or she could she goes in and the bank teller asks her for ID before he can cash the check for a penny.
Oh, even better. I like that. All right, guys, any questions on that program? I'm going to play with it some more, and I'll probably talk about it over the next couple of months a little bit more. I'm going to try to build a couple of documents up that we can actually play with and see.
Oh, yeah, I do have a question. How much is it, or that's not shareware, is it?
No, right now it's free.
That's not open source or anything, is it?
No, right now it's free. The beta is free.
Beta is free.
All their software gives you either 2 weeks or 4 weeks to play with it for free. But the beta's been free for about the last 5 months. And about every 3 weeks or so, if you go to start it up, like about every 3 or 4 weeks, you'll go to start up and it'll says trial has expired. Click for new download. And what it is, they're forcing you to get the latest version about every 3 or 4 weeks. Everything's compatible. It fully saves. It does everything. Some of the features, as you saw right away, don't work yet, but they're hoping that people will play with it to let them know of any bugs or any enhancements. This company is really aggressive about enhancements and bugs.
Well, they have. Look who they're competing against, Adobe. You know, they kind of have to do something to compete against.
Well, here's the thing:
800-pound gorilla.
Yeah, the cheapest anything Adobe you can get retail price-wise is $100 for Photoshop Elements, as an example.
Right.
They don't have a cheap version of Illustrator. They don't have a cheap version of InDesign. PageMaker no longer exists. Quark Express is $600 or $700. I'm sure this will be along the same price range as what Affinity Photos is, $50 retail, and they offer it for the iPad for like $15. And Affinity Designer is $50 retail, and every now and then they offer that at a discounted rate. And I'm pretty sure that you're going to find that Publisher is going to be $50 as well.
If they
do like they did before with Designer, if you get on the beta list right now and you keep updating the beta, they'll give you an option to buy it at like 10 or 15% or 20% lower than what the retail price will be. And as far as I can tell, so far, these are lifetime licenses.
When you make files in the earlier versions of the beta, will they open okay in the later?
No problem. They've always done that.
They don't limit how many copies you can save or how long.
So far, I haven't been able to find. I've written the guy a couple of times saying we're going to talk about this because I wanted to see if I could get him to do this. And he says, I got tutorials. You can do it. Don't worry about it. I mean, it's coming from, he's either England or Germany or someplace like that or whatever. He's got a distinctive accent. And, but it sounds like he sounds like he's German or French or whatever it is with an English accent. But, he gets back to you within like a day or two. And if there's a bug or something that he's detected, I suggested a couple of things that on one of the programs, I said, gee, it'd be nice if it did this. And about 3 weeks later, he sent me an email back and he says, do the update. I mean, who does that? You don't get anybody to tell you that anymore.
That's pretty good service. You can't get much better, I don't think.
Nope.
3 weeks is probably about how long it takes them to replicate the bug and go in there and find and fix it.
Well, I actually had sent him a video recording showing what it did. And I'm sure, you can't test everything. It's just impossible. There's going to be something. So I'm sure they're looking every time, it's sort of like, well, Pixelmator is no longer available. I think it's Pixelmator. Google got rid of one of them. I forget which one it was. But, because Google Photos will sort of do the same thing now, but it was really good that you, like on the, if you use GIMP, the open source graphics image manipulator program, GIMP, within about 6 months of Adobe coming out with a brand new feature, GIMP's got it in there. And that's all open source. That's all totally free.
Right.
So,
completely.
But I like the idea. I don't mind. I didn't like the idea of, I loved Adobe products. I didn't like the fact that it was going to cost me a couple $100 a year to maintain something I may or may not use.
Right.
But I wish I could have stayed at like Adobe 6 or 7 and just kept the old version. I could probably search for it and find it or whatever it is, or go through some of my old CDs and maybe it would be compatible with Mojave or whatever it is. But I like the fact that these people are keeping updates on this. And as far as I can tell right now, you're buying a lifetime license unless they come out with something major. Because every time he has an update, it checks for an update every time you start the program up. And if there's an update, it tells you right away, do you want to update it?
Well, there's the GIMP, which is like Photoshop, and it's free, open source. And then there's, I forget the name of it, there's one for vector graphics, which is like Adobe Illustrator, and it's free. But I don't think there really is a free open source equivalent to InDesign, really.
There is sort of. If you go to Open Office, they do have a page layout program in there.
They have
it's closer to Microsoft's Publisher than anything else. Because Open Office is basically a ripoff of Microsoft Office.
Yeah. Oh, so they do have some version of.
They have something in there, but you know, you could do it in a lot of different programs. You could do it in Microsoft Word if you wanted to.
Well, yeah, that's true. You can do it in Word. It's not ideal, maybe, but you can do it.
Is this you, Larry?
No, that's accidentally me.
So did you have a question, or what are you trying to do? You are sharing your screen right now?
Oh, okay. I was trying to. I had a question, but I forgot what it was.
Okay.
So how do I oh.
You've got a little box that pops up there. If you click on the red lower right corner, it'll disconnect you. It'll disconnect the screen sharing feature.
Okay, hold on a second. Don't know what happened here. I don't see it.
Okay, I'll do it. There we go.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
All right, guys. Anything else?
Are we going to be on for next month for June, you think?
Yep. Or we're good for June, July, and August, September. I don't know where I'm going to be. We'll be on our way to Canada.
Okay. All right. Well, see you guys hopefully in June. We're going to be on a trip sometime in June, but I don't know if it'll be on the second Saturday. But if not,
where are you guys going?
If not June, I'll see you in July, all of you.
Where are you guys going, Bruce?
We have a relative who's getting married back in Michigan, so we're going to drive back there. And I forget which week in June it is. It'll probably be my luck. It'll fall on the second Saturday and conflict, or that we'll be there. So I don't know if I'll be on in June, but I should be in July as far as I know.
Good. All right, guys.
Okay.
All right. Stay on, Bruce.
Okay.
Yeah, can you?
Bye, Greg.
I have a question too.
Go ahead.
Yeah, how do I get my picture on the screen if I have a question? I'm not good.
You go to share,
Right.
and it brings up a dialog box, and one of them is the default that will usually be highlighted in green is desktop. So whatever's on your desktop, that's what it's going to see. But if you've got a particular program open, you can also select just that program, or you can select a whiteboard, or whatever programs you have running will show up on that share screen. But the default is desktop. It will show everything on the desktop. So if you show the desktop, then you need to hide this application if you want to show something else.
Right, but I mean, just to have the webcam picture, the webcam showing me, so I can see all you guys.
Oh, you must have turned it off. I'm trying to remember how the hell you turned that back on. I know you can log out and log back in. It'll come back on that way. There is a way to turn that video off and on, and damned if I can remember how to do it. Hang on a second.
Well, if I go to my picture in the gallery, it says stop video or mute my audio.
Right. There is. Stuart, I'm going to have to look that one up. I can't remember how to do it. Yeah. I know once before Robert or somebody had done that, and it took me like 15 minutes to figure it out. I'll have to look it up and see.
Okay, so you understand my question. I see everybody's picture. And I want
everybody's miniature except yourself.
Right.
Greg, I just downloaded the program.
Oh, the publisher program?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should work good on your setup with 2 monitors, although I don't know if it makes...
Like I said, I'm going to set my iPad back up here to play with it and put some of the pals over there so I can have a bigger desktop to work with.
Yeah. I guess that's more a function of the operating system than the app, so Bart should be able to use his dual monitor setup with it if he wanted to, for example.
I could put Photoshop on one and then the Affinity app on the other monitor.
Yeah, you could do that too.
Or Lightroom on one and Affinity on the monitor. Either way,
right,
it will work.
Right, if you're making a brochure for the temple or for something, or any kind of publication.
I won't have to, on the stuff that doesn't even have to go through, well, actually on all this stuff, when it goes through Photoshop after I get done editing there, it goes back into Lightroom. So I could do everything from Lightroom and Affinity, since I can size things on Affinity without having to size things in Photoshop.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Okay.
Hey, Greg.
See you next month.
All right.
Yeah.
Anybody? Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Take care.
If you can shoot me an email when you find out.
I'll do that. We'll do.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.